obedience, authority, and the illusion of moral choice. Most people believe they would refuse an immoral order. They imagine a clear moment, a line they would never cross, a moment where conscience speaks loudly, where the answer feels obvious. But psychology suggests something more unsettling. History doesn't show a world divided between the obedient and the cruel. It shows a world filled with ordinary people who believed they were doing what was required. Under authority, moral choice doesn't disappear. It becomes quiet. Obedience isn't driven by weakness. It's driven by certainty. When instructions come from someone calm, confident, and legitimate, responsibility subtly shifts away from the individual. The order doesn't feel like a demand. It feels like structure. And structure feels safe. The mind reframes obedience as protection, not only from punishment, but from doubt. Not obedience versus morality, but obedience as morality. This is where psychology becomes uncomfortable, because obedience doesn't usually feel like submission. It feels like alignment. Alignment with a system, with a role, with expectations. And roles are powerful. When a person steps into a role, employee, soldier, official, professional, identity begins to change. The self becomes conditional. I am not acting as myself, the mind tells itself. I am acting as what is required. Philosophy asks an uncomfortable question here. Can responsibility exist without the feeling of choice? When people say, I was just following orders, they're not denying that they acted. They're denying authorship. The action occurred, but it doesn't feel owned. The decision feels external. The self becomes a role, and roles feel exempt from judgment. This psychological shift is subtle. No one announces it. No one plans it. It happens gradually as authority replaces deliberation. Once responsibility feels distributed, conscience becomes quieter, and silence feels like consent. After the act, the mind works quickly. Harm is justified as necessity. Context replaces conscience. Identity is preserved by explanation. I had no choice. It was required. It was already decided. This isn't evil. It's self-preservation. The human mind protects its image of itself at all costs. Not because people are dishonest, but because identity must remain coherent. Admitting moral authorship after harm is destabilizing. So the mind rewrites the story. Philosophers have long warned that systems don't require cruelty to function. They require participation. And participation becomes easier when moral weight feels abstract. This is why authority prefers calm voices to loud ones. Why instructions are framed as procedures. Why language becomes technical instead of human. Procedure removes emotion. Emotion invites resistance. The danger isn't blind obedience. It's how obedience feels reasonable, even moral, in the moment. People don't usually obey because they want to harm. They obey because disobedience feels irresponsible, unprofessional, disruptive, wrong. And once obedience feels virtuous, resistance feels selfish. This is how moral frameworks invert quietly. Responsibility doesn't vanish. Awareness does. And when awareness fades gradually, no resistance feels necessary. No alarm sounds. No dramatic choice appears. Just one step, then another. Each one small enough to justify. Each one easier than the last. By the time the outcome is visible, the path feels irreversible. This is the final discomfort. If obedience can feel ethical, and harm can feel procedural, then morality isn't only about intention, it's about attention. It requires awareness in moments where awareness is discouraged. The unsettling question is this: at what point does obedience stop being compliance and become a choice? And perhaps more importantly, at what moment do we decide to notice that moment at all?